Welcome. Let your shoulders loosen. Let your breath lengthen and grow quiet. Tonight, we open our eyes to a very old morning. The Nile lies calm before you, a long ribbon of silver blue, breathing with the land. At this hour, the river is more mirror than water, catching the first pale light, holding it gently, and giving it back to the sky. The eastern horizon begins as a line of ash, then warms to bruised violet, and slowly to a tender rose. Clouds thin as linen discover their edges. Palms stand in silhouette, their fronds still as carved stone. Somewhere out in the reeds, an ibis lifts its narrow head and steps silently, a white petal moving through green. Breathe in. There is the coolness of night lingering over wet banks and clay jars. Breathe out. There is the faint promise of heat. Not yet here, not yet pressing upon the day. Along the west bank, houses of sun-baked brick give off the soft, dusty scent of sleep. Roofs hold the last of the night. A mother sits up on a mat, pulls a woven cloth around her shoulders, and listens to the small sounds of a home waking. The creak of a reed basket, a clay lid set gently aside, a child turning over once more. And sighing down by the water, oats are a language of simple shapes, broad papyrus skiffs with flared ends, narrow wooden hulls with a single oar laid ready, coiled ropes like sleeping serpents. A pair of fishermen move with the patience of old routine. One raises a net, the other rinses last night's river mud from his hands. They speak, but softly, as if their words might disturb the mirrored surface that carries the sun to them. The sky grows braver. Gold catches first at the edge of a pylon far upstream, then at the higher bricks of a temple wall. Warm light slides. Down stone carved with stories, falcons with outstretched wings, lotuses opening, lines of prayer cut with small obedient blows by hands you will never know. A priest appears at the temple threshold, barefoot and quiet. He pours clear water from a jar onto the ground, then lifts incense to the cool air. The smoke wanders upward like a thought, and for a moment the world smells of resin and of sweetness. Listen. The city is still mostly breath and hush, but it has begun. A potter's courtyard stirs. A wheel turns under a gentle foot. From a bakery, the first lamps are trimmed, and dough heavy, hopeful meets the smooth curve of a kneading board. The scent of grinding barley flour is soft, a dusty, honest comfort that has fed this land for generations. The baker presses a thumbprint into each small round, not as a signature, but as a promise that bread will return tomorrow. Goats-2. Then 3 nibble at straw swept into a corner. A thin cat passes like a shadow, pauses, then disappears under a low bench. In the alley, a boy carries a jar as tall as his thigh. He balances it carefully on one hip and walks with the solemn pride of new responsibility. An older sister steps. Out behind him, her braids still damp from the river, her feet finding the cool patches of shade between walls. On the river's edge, men raise the wooden arm of the shaduf. A single clay bucket dips, rises like a dark sun, and spills into a wading channel. Water takes the shape of its path, crooked and exact. Soon it will cross to thirsty plots of earth, where rows of onions and flax remember the last time the river gave. The light climbs, gradual and patient. Gold gathers on the high corners, then washerwomen's shoulders, then the narrow backs of tiny brown birds that argue soft and busy in the sycamores. If you look closely, you can see a line of ants carrying crumbs along a wage route older than writing. They do not hurry. They do not doubt their work. The river exhales again. A breeze moves from water to land, lifting a curtain, letting it fall. A man in a small boat pushes off with a long pole. He keeps one palm open to feel the morning, the other wrapped around smooth wood. He does not look up, not yet, because he knows the sun is coming, whether he seeks it or not. In the distance, Beyond low roofs, date palms hold their crowns like quiet torches. Between them, the fields are neat and brown and green, squared and watered, stitched together with footpaths and narrow canals. A pair of oxen stand side by side, tails flicking, patient, heavy presences with the measured hearts of beasts who know the heat will come. Near them, a woman ties a cloth bundle, presses it once to her chest, and leaves it by a shaded doorway for a husband who will eat when the work begins. Listen again. Hear the scrape of a reed broom against a threshold. Hear a clay cup set upon a wooden tray. Hear a single cough, then silence, then footsteps crossing a courtyard. 3 pigeons rise all at once and spin a brief silver circle above the roofline. They settle on a beam, cooing, counting the day in soft syllables. The first ferry of the morning appears, a flat raft of timber, nudged across the current by 2 men with poles. A merchant stands beside baskets tied with fiber rope. He watches the shore approach, measures the distance a dozen times with his eyes, and lets the habit of trade steady his breath. He will speak later in the easy rhythm of prices and weights, but for now, he is just another figure in the painting of the morning. Closer to the temple, a narrow lane widens into a small square, a place where voices collect and soften. A scribe will pass here later, feet dusty, eyes careful. But now, at dawn, the square belongs to the quiet, to the woman placing a water jar near the well, to the man mending a sandal strap, to the boy tracing a heron's footprint in damp earth with a reed. He is not drawing, not exactly. He is learning the feel of line. The sun arrives not in a rush, but in a kindness. It lays a hand upon the city and says, "Awake." Stone warms first, then brick, then skin. Shadows remain long and blue, as if the night has decided to linger politely on the edges, to watch the day begin before it slips away. From the temple colonnade, a low chant moves like a slow river. Words older than memory, measured and sure, find their way across the square and through open doorways. They do not ask to be heard. They simply are. Incense threads the air again, and you might imagine that the smoke remembers the hands that gathered it, the ships that carried it, the markets that weighed it out a pinch at a time. Breathe in, cool stone, damp reed, faint myrrh. A long, unhurried breath that leaves space for the day. A flock of egrets lifts from the opposite bank, white wing after white wing, a procession of quiet signals. Their reflections flutter a heartbeat behind them in the water, as if the river wishes to keep a copy for itself. Beyond them, far beyond, are the desert's low gold backs, dunes that sleep through history and wake only to shift a little under. Wind, the city is awake now, but gently. There will be labor and noise, heat and decision, but not yet. In this soft hour, everything is permission and beginning. You could learn the map of the day by simply standing still, by listening to the grain grinder find her rhythm, to the ferrymen judge the current, to the oxen accept the yoke without argument. You could understand this place without a single word written. And yet, words wait dot behind a modest doorway, in a room where last night's coolness lingers. A low table holds a pallet, 2 shallow wells of pigment black like the soot of lamps, red like powdered earth, and a cluster of reeds cut to sharp, clean points. Papyrus lies rolled like sleeping scrolls, fibers faintly ridged under the fingers. A jar of water stands ready, its mouth covered with a small shard to keep dust away. The corner of the room is neat. The work is waiting. A life is waiting. The light reaches the threshold, touches the floor in a small bright rectangle, and moves inward a finger's width, and then another. A bird calls from the roof beam. 2 notes, nothing more. A hand appears in the doorway. It rests there easy, as if weighing the day before lifting it. Let your breath match the slow growth of the light. Let your body remember the gentler part of morning, the part before tasks have names, before lines must be made straight. There is no hurry here. The river is not hurrying. The sun is not hurrying. Even the ink is patient. This is dawn over. The Nile sunrise, golden light, an awakening city, and it asks for nothing from you but to notice. Step inside. The chamber is small, yet it holds a gravity greater than its walls. This is the room where thoughts become lines, and lines become memory, and memory becomes eternity. The floor is plain, pressed from earth, covered with reed mats that whisper when you shift your weight upon them. Each mat is worn, yet carefully kept, its fibers darkened by years of quiet labor. Here the scribe will sit cross-legged for hours, his spine upright, his knees aching long before the sun begins to fall. Along the wall rests a narrow wooden chest. It does not gleam. Its surface is scratched, dulled by many hands. But open it, and you will see the scribe's treasures, the ink palettes, the jars of pigment, the rolls of papyrus tucked like sleeping scrolls. Black ink, soot dark and steady, for the body of words. Red ink, ochre and sharp, for names of gods, for warnings, for emphasis. 2 colors only, yet in them, an entire universe. The palettes are shallow, carved from wood and limestone. Each bears. It stains proudly, a constellation of marks where water once kissed pigment. When the scribe mixes his inks, he does not think of art. He thinks of balance, of clarity, of permanence. Beside them lie the reed pens, cut carefully from the banks of the Nile. Their tips are trimmed to points, with a blade kept sharper than junci. A hunter's arrow. Some reeds are new, their edges firm and precise. Others are frayed, softened by weeks of scratching papyrus. They will soon be discarded, but not yet every reed lives out its usefulness. For ink is precious, time is precious, and nothing may be wasted. Against another wall rest bundles of papyrus. Their texture is fibrous, faintly ridged under the hand. The sheets are rolled tight, bound with cord, and stacked with a patience that only scribes can know. Some are blank, waiting to be filled. Others bear half-finished lines, a decree interrupted, a prayer still incomplete. They wait silently, their words suspended like a breath not yet released. The air inside the chamber is dry and still. It smells faintly of ink, of rush plants, of old dust warmed by the rising sun. No breeze moves here, no sound intrudes, but the gentle crackle of your own imagination. It is a room carved out of time itself, a place where silence is not empty, but alive with expectation. Sit for a moment. Feel the woven reed mat beneath you. See the palette before you. Notice how even in stillness, this chamber holds the weight of kingdoms. Because here, in this quiet, the future of Egypt is written one careful stroke, one fragile sheet, one mortal hand at a time. Spread before you now, the scribe's instruments, simple, yet powerful enough to hold the weight of gods and kings. First, the reed pens. Cut from the tall plants that grow along the Nile's edge, each reed is chosen carefully, its stalk firm, its fibers straight. With a sharp blade, the end is trimmed and hollowed, shaped into a fine point. The tip must be exact, not too soft, lest the lines blur, not too hard, lest it tear the papyrus. The scribe sharpens often, the quiet scrape of blade against reed. As constant as a heartbeat. Next, the ink palette. A slab of wood or limestone, small enough to rest in one hand. 2 shallow wells, side by side. One for black, one for red. Black is the body of text, the steady march of sentences, the enduring thread of story. Red is for names of gods, for warnings, for beginnings. When the 2 colors meet, the page lives. The inks themselves are born of earth and fire. Black from soot gathered from the smoke of oil lamps, mixed with water, bound with gum. Red from ochre, pulled from the desert's veins, ground to powder, and blended until smooth. In each stroke, a fragment of land, a breath of flame, a trace of river dot, and then papyrus. Sheets pressed from reeds, fibers cut, soaked, laid in. Crossing layers, then pressed until they cling as one. The surface is pale, ribbed with faint ridges, a soft resistance under the pen. It crackles faintly when unrolled, a sound as delicate as dry leaves. Each sheet carries the memory of water, the memory of sun, and waits now for memory of words. Finally, the blade, small, sharp, kept for trimming reeds and scraping away mistakes. A dangerous friend, reminder that even errors may be cut away, though never without leaving a scar. Together these tools are humble, yet they are keys. From them spring contracts, prayers, laws, hymns. From them come curses, blessings, prophecies. In their careful use, a scribe gives permanence to breath and voice, to silence. Sit with them for a moment. Reeds, inks, papyrus, blade. Nothing more, nothing less. And yet, the future bends to these fragile things. Sit quietly now and feel the stillness of this chamber grow heavier. Not with stone or clay, but with something invisible. It is the weight of knowledge. The scribe does not labor for himself alone. Every mark he makes, every line of hieroglyphs, drawn in careful order, is a burden he carries for his people, for his temple, for his pharaoh. Consider this. To the farmer, the world is soil and seed, sun and water. To the mason, the world is stone. To the soldier, the world is strength and steel. But to the scribe, the world is words. And words are power. Each symbol carved or brushed upon papyrus is more than shape. It is a vessel for thought, a spark of divinity, a bridge between earth and eternity. The scribes knew this. They whispered it in prayers to Thoth, the great god of wisdom and writing. It was believed that to write was to touch the divine, to copy words was to guard immortality. But such a gift is also a burden. One slip of the reed, one forgotten symbol, could alter a law, confuse a ritual, or anger the gods themselves. A misplaced word might mean a famine blamed on a farmer, or an innocent man condemned. And so the scribe bends his body, narrows his eyes, and lets the weight of Egypt rest upon his shoulders. He is more than clerk, more than servant. He is a guardian of memory, a keeper of truth. His records shape the world. Who owns land, who pays taxes, who is praised, who is punished. What is sung in temples, what is carved into tombs, what is whispered in eternity. The people outside may never know his face, but they live within his words. And so he carries himself not with pride, but with solemn care, as if each line of ink were a rope holding Egypt together. Pause here. Breathe slowly. Imagine that every thought you hold, every dream you carry, must be written in careful symbols so that tomorrow can exist. That is the life of a scribe. That is the weight of knowledge. The chamber is still dim, yet already the scents of morning drift in through the narrow doorway. Before the eyes are fully awake, the nose begins its work. First, the faint sweetness of incense. Somewhere beyond these walls, a priest has lit a stick of resin, and its smoke curls like a soft ribbon through the air. It smells of frankincense and myrrh, earthy, golden, a fragrance meant to please the gods and to remind mortals that day is sacred. Then, mingling with it, comes the aroma of fresh bread. From the bakeries near the square, round loaves are pulled from clay ovens. Their crusts crack gently as the cool morning air touches them, releasing the warm, nutty scent of barley. It drifts down alleys, slips through courtyards, and settles in this chamber like a reminder that life is sustained by humble hands. And always, beneath every other smell, there is the breath of the Nile, cool, damp, unmistakable. It carries the memory of water reeds, of silt left by floods, of long journeys from the distant south. Even here, in the heart of the city, the river is present, a perfume of water and clay, binding all other scents together. The scribe breathes deeply, and with each inhalation he takes in not only air, but the layers of a civilization. Incense for the gods, bread for the people, river for the land. These are the three pillars of Egypt's morning. And they arrive not with noise, but with fragrance, gentle, steady, patient. Close your eyes. Let the smoke, the bread, the river rise quietly around you. Breathe slowly, and let the sense of ancient Egypt carry you into the day. Before a single word may be written, before reed touches papyrus, the scribe must begin with purity. He kneels by a low basin of cool water. Its surface shivers faintly in the morning light, reflecting not his face, but the calm stillness of duty. With both hands, he lifts the water and pours it gently across his skin. The ritual is simple, yet it is never hurried. First the hands, for they will hold the reed, they will guide the ink, they will shape the words of kings and gods. Then the face, so the eyes may see clearly, and the mind may wake. Finally the mouth, rinsed with water, so no impure word may escape while sacred texts are copied. The water itself is not ordinary. It comes from the Nile river of life, gift of the gods. To cleanse with it is to place oneself within the eternal rhythm of the land. Flood, soil, seed, harvest. Each drop carries the memory of rain, the journey of currents, the blessing of Hapi, God of the flood. This act is more than washing. It is an opening, a quiet doorway from the world of sleep into the world of duty. The scribe bows his head, and in that small gesture, he acknowledges that the task of writing is never his alone. It is guided by the gods, watched by Thoth, carried forward by those who came before. The chamber smells faintly now of wet clay, of cool stone touched by water. The mats darken where drops fall, and then dry again without complaint. The silence is deep, but not empty. It is a silence filled with intention. When the ritual is complete, the scribe dries his hands upon a strip of linen. He does not rush. Every movement is measured, every gesture deliberate. For if the beginning is pure, the words that follow may flow without corruption. Sit with him a moment longer. Breathe slowly. Feel the water, cool and eternal, pass through your own hands in imagination. With each breath out, let go of the dust of yesterday. With each breath in, welcome the stillness of sacred work. This is how the day truly begins, with cleansing, with silence, with the humility of ritual. The chamber is still. The air carries only the faintest trace of water and reed. Now the scribe turns inward, for before the hand may write, the spirit must bow. He faces east, where the sun has risen over the Nile. The first light still glows. Upon the threshold, a reminder that each day is both gift and trial. Kneeling upon the reed mat, he closes his eyes and breathes deeply. The prayer is not loud. It is a murmur, a thread of sound woven into the silence. He calls upon Thoth, Lord of wisdom, keeper of the sacred tongue, scribe of the gods themselves. Great Thoth, you who balance the scales of truth, you who hold the reed and the palette of the divine, guide my hand, guard my eyes. Let no error fall upon these lines. Let the words I copy endure as surely as the stones of the temple. Grant that my ink may flow straight and steady, that my mind may remain clear and faithful. The scribe bows his head, pressing his forehead lightly to the mat. This gesture is not submission to men, but reverence to eternity. For he knows his work is more than duty. It is participation in something vast, the preservation of Egypt's soul. A silence follows, long and deliberate. The chamber holds it like a vessel. Then he lifts his head, and the prayer continues without words, in breath, in posture, in the quiet certainty that he has placed himself beneath the eye of Thoth. Near the door, the sun shifts a little higher, casting a thin gold bar across the papyrus rolls. They glow faintly, as though blessed. The scribe sees this and takes it as sign. The gods have heard. The prayer is ended, but its echo remains. It lingers in the reed pens, in the black and red pigments, in the fibers of papyrus waiting patiently. All are now consecrated by intention. Pause. Hear. Breathe as the scribe breathes. Feel the hush of reverence. The work ahead is heavy, but it begins with stillness, with prayer, with alignment to the divine. The prayer has ended. Now comes the preparation of tools. The scribe reaches for a small bundle of reeds, cut days earlier from the banks of the Nile. Each reed is light in the hand, hollow and smooth, its skin the pale gold of sun-dried grass. Not every reed is worthy of writing. Some bend too easily, some split at the edges. The scribe chooses with care, turning each between his fingers, listening almost with touch dot. When the right one is found, he takes up a small blade. Its edge gleams. Faintly, a sliver of brightness in the dim room. He places the reed against it, and with a steady movement, slices the tip at a clean angle. A second cut shapes the point. A third hollows the channel through which ink will flow. The sound is faint, a dry whisper of plant against steel. But in this silence, every scrape feels as loud as thought. He works slowly. The cut must be exact, not too shallow, not too deep. A single mistake, and the reed is ruined. When the pen is ready, he tests it on a fragment of papyrus. The point glides, leaving a thin black stroke, then a thicker one, responding to the tilt of his hand. The reed obeys. The pen lives. He sharpens. Another and another, for a day's work requires many. Reeds wear down quickly, their tips fraying with each line, each symbol. Some scribes carry 10, some more, each sharpened to a slightly different cut, broad for bold signs, fine for delicate ones. The table fills with points of gold, each one resting like a quiet promise. They are humble, made from river plants. Yet they will shape decrees of kings, poems to gods, records of harvests, and spells for eternity that sit with them now. See their sharpness gleam against the muted walls. Hear the faint echo of the blade's last scrape. Breathe slowly, as if sharpening your own thoughts, paring them down to clarity. This is not noise, not haste. It is ritual and craft. The reed, the blade, the patient hand, and with them, the future of Egypt awaits. The reeds are sharpened. They wait in a neat row, like soldiers at rest before the march. Now the scribe turns to the heart of his craft, the making of ink. Before him lies a small palette, its surface carved with 2 shallow wells. One will hold black, the other red. Only these 2, yet with them the whole world may be written. He begins with the black. From a tiny jar he takes soot, gathered from the smoke of oil lamps. It is soft as ash, dark as midnight, weightless as breath. He sprinkles it gently into the first well and adds a few drops of water. With the tip of a reed, he stirs. Slowly, the powder yields, becoming a smooth, thick liquid. A touch of gum resin binds it, so the ink will cling to papyrus and not vanish with the years. It smells faintly of smoke, a whisper of flame captured and stilled. Then he turns to the red. From another jar comes ochre, the powdered heart of the desert. It gleams in the morning light, the color of rust and of sun-baked cliffs. He mixes it too with water and gum, pressing until the grains dissolve, until the well shines with liquid fire. This ink is not for common words. It is for the names of gods, for titles of kings, for warnings that must burn on the page. He tests each mixture, dipping a sharpened reed, drawing a line upon a scrap of papyrus. The black flows steady and sure, like the Nile in flood. The red blazes, a small flame etched into fiber dot. The palette is ready now. 2 simple colors, 2 eternal voices. Black for the body of knowledge, red for the pulse of divinity. Together they will carry law and prayer, song and memory, into the endless river of time. The scribe sets the jars aside. He rests a moment, hands still, eyes quiet. The chamber smells now of soot and earth, of water and resin. It is not unpleasant. It is the scent of permanence. Pause here. Imagine the brush of soot across your fingertips, the brightness of ochre between them. 2 colors, 2 choices, enough to shape eternity. The inks are ready. The reeds are sharpened. Now the scribe turns to the waiting papyrus. A roll lies before him, bound with cord. Its surface is pale, ribbed with the faint texture of reeds pressed long ago. He unties the cord with care, as though unwrapping something sacred. The scroll loosens, and a gentle crackle fills the chamber. The dry murmur of fibers stretching awake dot. He spreads the sheet across the low table. It resists at first, curling back on itself, but he coaxes it flat, weighing the edges with smooth. Stones. Each corner is pressed into stillness. Now the surface is ready, a quiet field awaiting seed. He runs a hand lightly across the sheet. It is not smooth like parchment. It carries the faint ridges of the river plants from which it was born. Horizontal fibers crossed with vertical, woven by water and sun, and pressed together until they became one body. This surface has memory. The memory of reeds swaying in the Nile, the memory of blades cutting stalks, the memory of hands pressing, drawing, binding. A small brush of cloth removes any dust. The sheet must be clean, for even a speck of grit may catch the reed's tip, turning a line to a blot, a word to confusion. The scribe leans close, inspecting each span, as if searching for flaws in a jewel. He marks the margins lightly with a guide, not rulers, but faint signs to steady his hand. The text must march in order, each line straight, each column true. For disorder on the page is dishonor to the god's dot. At last he sits back. The papyrus lies open, quiet and pale, a landscape awaiting its story. It is empty, yet it already holds weight, the promise of what will soon be written. Close your eyes a moment. Imagine the texture beneath your hand, the faint ridges, the dry smoothness, the whisper of fibers pressed together. It waits, calm and patient, for the first drop of ink to fall, and with that, the day's true labor is about to begin. The papyrus lies ready, smooth and pale beneath the morning light. The scribe dips the reed into the black well of ink and pauses just a heartbeat to steady his breath. The first stroke is made with care. A single symbol, precise, balanced, drawn not only for meaning, but for reverence. These are not ordinary words. They are hymns, prayers, invocations to the gods of Egypt. Every line copied is a link in the chain that binds heaven and earth together. He begins with the names of the divine, each one written in red, the color of life, and warning, the color. That makes the gods attend. Then the black follows, verses that rise and fall in rhythm, like breath, like the river's own eternal current. The chamber is silent, but for the faint scratch of reed on papyrus. It is not noise. It is rhythm, a sound that has echoed through centuries, from one scribe to the next, from temple to temple, from generation to eternity. Every symbol is more than shape. It is a vessel. The falcon's curve carries Horus's. The ankh holds life. The feather of Mot carries truth. To copy them is to set them living upon the page, to give them permanence beyond breath. The scribe bends closer, his eyes tracing line after line. A slip of the hand would not only mar the page, but risk offense to the gods. So his back aches, his fingers cramp, but he does not lift his hand until a verse is complete. From time to time he pauses, dipping the reed once more, letting the ink soak its hollow channel. He blots gently, ensuring no drop spreads too wide. And then he continues, word after word, symbol after symbol, until the prayer is alive again on papyrus. Outside, the city stirs with noise. Markets open, voices rise. But here, inside this chamber, there is only the work, the hush, the endless echo of the sacred. Close your eyes for a moment. Hear the scratch of reed upon papyrus. See the red and black gleaming faintly in the light. Feel the patience in every breath, the reverence in every stroke. This is the scribe's first duty, to copy the sacred, to preserve the divine, to ensure that Egypt's prayers outlive the men who speak them. The sacred texts lie completed, their verses safe upon the papyrus. But the scribe's duties do not end with prayer. Outside the temples, another world demands his hand, the world of records and accounts. A chest is brought before him, filled with scrolls bound in cord. Each one holds the pulse of the kingdom, tallies of grain, lists of taxes, records of trade, and names of those who owe and those who have paid. He unties a scroll carefully. The papyrus crackles faintly, revealing columns of numbers and symbols. Lined neatly in black ink, the reed pen dips once more, and he begins to copy. 3 measures of barley, delivered from the western fields. 2 baskets of fish, brought from the river shore. 5 jars of beer, accounted to the temple storehouse. Each entry is plain, but each is vital. For without these records, the kingdom would falter. The pharaoh's armies march because scribes counted the grain. The temples thrive because scribes tallied their offerings. The markets flow because scribes kept track of goods exchanged. The work is not glorious. It does not sing with myth or magic. Yet it is the backbone of Egypt, and only those who can read and write carry the burden of keeping order. The scribe sits long, his pen moving steadily. Columns grow across the page, neat and exact. Errors cannot be allowed. A single stroke wrong could mean a family taxed twice. A temple shorted its share. A soldier left UNFED around him. The city hums. Farmers bring baskets to storehouses. Merchants haggle in the square. Clerks carry messages from one hall to another. All of it depends on ink, on reed, on the patient hand of a scribe. He does not sigh. He does not rush. For he knows this too is sacred, not to the gods above, but to the people who live, work, and eat by the order his words create. Close your eyes now. Imagine the endless columns of symbols, each one a measure of wheat, a basket of figs, a tally of lives woven into. The rhythm of the Nile. It is quiet, repetitive, endless, and yet it is the heartbeat of a civilization. The scribe's palate is never far from matters of justice. For in Egypt, the law is not only spoken, it is written. And what is written endures. He is summoned to the hall of judgment, where a magistrate sits beneath the carved image of Mat, the goddess of truth, her feather shining in the morning light. Petitioners gather in the shadows. A farmer disputing the boundaries of his field, a merchant accused of short measure, a laborer demanding wages not paid. The hall is hushed, but heavy with expectation. The judge listens, asks questions, and at last speaks the decision. Yet it is the scribe who bends over his papyrus, capturing every word. He writes with slow precision, ensuring that each decree is set in ink, each sentence a weight upon the scales of eternity. Once the reed scratches the papyrus, the judgment is no longer fleeting breath. It becomes record. It becomes memory. It becomes binding. The accused may protest, the guilty may weep, but the ink is already dry, the symbols already fixed. To alter them would be crime against the gods themselves. For Mat demands truth, and the scribe's hand is the vessel of that truth. Sometimes the cases are simple, a boundary stone moved, a lost goat returned. Other times, they carry the gravity of life and death. When a sentence of punishment is given, the scribe records it without flourish, without passion. Ink does not tremble. Even if the heart does dot at day's end, these scrolls are stored with care. Placed in chests, guarded in temple halls, they will outlast the voices that spoke them. 100 years from now, a scribe yet unborn may unroll them, and the voices of this court will live again. As if time itself had paused within the fibers of papyrus, close your eyes. Hear the hush of the judgment hall. See the steady hand drawing each symbol. Feel the silence settle, as though the world itself waits for the reed to finish its line. This is the scribe's duty, to turn fleeting justice into eternal order. From the court of judgment, the scribe's path often leads to the temple halls. Here, his duty is not to men, but to the gods. The temple is vast, its columns rising like a stone forest, painted with colors that still whisper of the sky, the earth, and the river. Incense hangs heavy in the air, and the light of the sun falls in long, golden beams through narrow openings above. The scribe walks softly. His reed pens and palette are carried with quiet care, for within these walls, every word he writes is meant as offering. Before him are scrolls older than his grandfather's life. They are hymns, ritual instructions, lists of sacred offerings. Each one must be copied, so the rituals remain exact, so no gesture, no chant, no grain of incense is ever forgotten. He unrolls a scroll carefully, its papyrus fragile, edges frayed with age. With reverence, he copies line for line, ensuring that the priests who read tomorrow will speak the same words as those who spoke 100 years before. Some lines praise the rising sun. Some invoke Osiris, lord of the underworld. Others describe the offerings: loaves of bread, bowls of beer, cuts of meat, flowers gathered at dawn. Each item is written in black ink, steady and exact. The names of the gods, always in red, stand out upon the page, bright as flame god around him. Priests chant softly. Their voices rise and fall like the Nile's tide. The scribe does not join, yet his work is part of the same worship. For without his hand, the words would fade. Without his lines, the gods would not be called as they have always been called. When a scroll is finished, he rolls it tight, ties it with cord, and sets it among the temple's treasures. It will be placed in a chest, guarded in shadow, and one day opened again by hands not yet born. Close your eyes. Breathe in the incense, sweet and heavy. Hear the echo of chanting under high stone ceilings. See the red and black lines shining faintly upon the papyrus. This is not simply writing. It is prayer made visible, eternity written down. Above all other tasks, the scribe holds one duty higher than the rest, to give voice to the pharaoh. For the pharaoh does not simply rule. He is the living Horus, the son of Ra, the bridge between heaven and earth. And his words, once spoken, must be preserved as eternal truth. When a royal edict is proclaimed, the scribe sits at attention, reed pen poised, papyrus unrolled. The hall around him is filled with officials, priests, and guards. But the only sound that matters is the pharaoh's voice. The decree may be great: the building of a temple, the raising of an obelisk, the sending of armies across the desert. Sands, or it may be small, a grant of land to a noble, a gift of grain to a loyal servant. But whatever the size, each word carries weight that will ripple across the lives of thousands. The scribe bends forward, listening intently, recording every phrase with precision. No embellishment, no omission. Only the truth is spoken. For to alter the pharaoh's words, even by accident, is to defy the order of the cosmos itself. When the decree is finished, the scribe reads it back softly, ensuring no symbol is misplaced. Then the scroll is sealed with wax and cord, marked with the royal insignia. Copies are made, some to be carried to distant provinces, others to be carved in stone, so that the command may live as long as the walls themselves. The scribe knows as he writes that these words will outlast him. Long after his bones return to dust, the Pharaoh's command will still be read aloud, still obeyed, still shaping the course of Egypt. Close your eyes. Hear the echo of the Pharaoh's voice in the high stone chamber. See the reed glide across. Papyrus, black and red binding power to permanence. Feel the hush that follows a finished decree, as if the entire kingdom has paused to listen. This is the highest duty of the scribe, to capture the living voice of a god-king and make it eternal. Beyond the temple walls, beyond the quiet chamber of ink and papyrus, the city stirs to life. The scribe hears it faintly through narrow windows, a distant hum of voices, a rising rhythm of trade and talk. The market square is alive. Merchants spread woven mats upon the ground, displaying their goods. Bright copper bowls, clay jars of oil, necklaces of faience beads, baskets brimming with figs and dates. Their colors shine under the climbing sun, like small treasures laid out upon the earth. Voices mingle deep and high, quick and slow. A fisherman calls out his morning catch, tilapia still silver with river water. A woman laughs softly as she weighs a cluster of onions in her hand. Children weave between stalls, their bare feet scattering dust, their laughter carrying like flutes through the air. The smells are rich and layered. Fresh bread still warm from the oven. The tongue of fish and salted meats. The sweet perfume of honey sealed in clay pots. A sharp note of garlic crushed beneath a knife. And always the drifting smoke of incense, offered to keep the gods near. Coins clink faintly, small discs of copper passed hand to hand, sometimes weighed, sometimes bitten for truth. More often, trade is simple exchange, grain for beer, cloth for sandals, fruit for pottery. Each bargain struck with smiles, or with stern words softened at last by agreement. From where the scribe sits, he hears the rhythm of this life. It rises and falls like a distant river. It reminds him that while he writes, the world outside is moving, growing, sustaining itself. And yet, the market depends upon him as well. For every trade recorded, every measure of grain taxed, every shipment tallied, all rests in ink. The bustle of voices is fleeting, but his scrolls will hold their echoes long after the market has gone quiet. Close your eyes. Imagine the square before you, the clamor of buyers, the bright stalls, the laughter of children, the mingled sense of food and earth. Now let it soften, let it drift like a dream. The bustle fades, the scribe returns to his chamber, but the pulse of the market remains, woven into his words. From the marketplace, the scribe's thoughts drift toward another sound, one that is sharper, more deliberate, the steady ring of chisel on stone. The stone carvers are at their work. They sit beneath the open sky, faces shaded by cloth, hands wrapped in leather. Blocks of limestone stand before them, pale and immense, awaiting transformation. Each carver holds a hammer in one hand, a chisel in the other. With patient rhythm, they strike, a tap, a pause, a tap, a pause. The sound carries across the street like a heartbeat, measured, enduring, unchanged for centuries. They do not write with ink. They write with dust. Every stroke of the chisel bites into stone, shaping curves and lines that will not fade when papyrus crumbles. Hieroglyphs rise slowly from the surface. The falcon's sharp eye, the lotus in bloom, the endless spiral of eternity. The air smells of powdered rock, dry and harsh. Each breath carries the taste of chalk, a reminder that permanence demands sacrifice. The carver's arms ache, their backs bend, their eyes strain against the glare of sun on pale stone. Yet they continue, knowing their work is not for themselves. When? A scribe's words must live forever. They are given to the carvers. The decree of a pharaoh, the prayer of a priest, a memory of the dead, all find their place here, etched into walls and pillars, set into the faces of tombs. The scribe visits, often scroll in hand, reading aloud the words to be carved. The carvers nod and bring the sound of hammer and chisel to match the rhythm of speech. Ink becomes dust. Papyrus becomes stone. Thought becomes eternity. Close your eyes now. Hear the ringing rhythm, tap, pause like the slow beating of a timeless drum. See the figures taking shape, emerging from the stone as though they were always waiting there. Feel the weight of permanence, the knowledge that once carved, a word may endure as long as the walls themselves. Is the work of the stone carvers, the hard echo of the scribe's soft reed. Together, they ensure that Egypt speaks forever. Within the temple walls, where incense lingers and shadows stretch long between the columns, move the priests of Egypt. They are guardians of ritual, keepers of sacred fire, voices raised in hymns that have drifted through centuries. The scribe knows them well, for though their roles are different, their paths cross often. The priests chant, the scribe writes. The priests lift offerings of bread and beer. The scribe records the measure, the weight, the number of loaves carried forward. Into memory. Yet beneath this cooperation lies a quiet tension. The priests hold power through ritual and presence. The scribes hold power through ink and permanence. A prayer spoken may fade in the air, but a prayer written may last 1,000 years. Still, the two depend upon each other. The priest who forgets. A hymn looks to the scribe's scroll. The scribe who copies divine words relies on the priest to keep them sacred. Together they weave a tapestry of devotion, sound and silence, voice and line, ritual and record. The priests move in silence when not chanting, their linen robes whispering against stone floors. Their heads are shaved clean, their bodies washed. Often, for purity is their offering as much as grain or incense. They carry amulets of the gods, their eyes lined with kohl, their steps deliberate, as if the very earth beneath them were holy ground. The scribe observes them, sometimes with respect, sometimes with caution. For priests are close to the gods, but scribes are close to memory. Both kinds of closeness carry weight. Both can shape destiny. At times, a priest will lean over the scribe's shoulder, watching each stroke of reed upon papyrus. At other times, the scribe will sit apart, recording quietly while the priests chant to the dawn. Two forms of worship, side by side, neither complete without the other. Close your eyes. Hear the low echo of voices chanting in stone halls. See the faint glow of oil lamps flickering on painted walls. Feel the quiet presence of robed figures, their steps slow, their words solemn. Between them and the scribes, the bridge to the divine is kept whole. This is the bond and the rivalry of the temple priests and the scribes. No scribe works alone. Around him move quiet figures, servants and apprentices, each with tasks that seem small, yet keep the rhythm of his work unbroken. A servant enters the chamber at dawn, placing a jar of water near the mat. He sweeps the floor with a reed broom, its bristles whispering against clay, brushing away dust that might cling to papyrus. He carries food in a woven basket, flat bread, a handful of dates, a small jug of beer, brewed thick and sweet. He does not speak, unless spoken to, yet his presence is felt in every corner of the room. The apprentices sit closer. They are young, their eyes wide with the hunger to learn. Each holds a broken shard of pottery, an ostrakhan covered in practice lines. They copy letters again and again, their hands trembling, their strokes uneven. The scribe watches in. Silence, correcting with a single glance, a quiet shake of the head, or the gift of a better cut reed These boys dream of scrolls and temples, of one day holding the title of scribe themselves. But for now, their duties are simple. They grind pigments, mix water into soot, cut reeds by the river, fetch scrolls from wooden chests. Their fingers are stained with ink, their mats worn thin from long hours of practice. The master knows their struggles. His own hands once trembled, as theirs do now, and he knows, too, that few will endure. For the path of the scribe is long, and many falter before its end. The ink is patient, but not merciful. Only those who learn its discipline will carry the title into manhood. Servants move quietly. Apprentices scratch and sigh, but all together form the unseen circle around the scribe. Without them, his ink would dry, his reeds would dull, his scrolls remain unrolled. With them, the rhythm of his work flows as smoothly as the Nile itself. Close your eyes. Hear the shuffle of sandals across the floor. See the bent heads of apprentices tracing symbols by dim light. Feel the quiet presence of hands that serve and hands that learn. This, too, is part of the scribe's chamber, a world sustained by those who assist and those who hope to follow. Outside the scribe's chamber, beyond the mats and scrolls, stands another figure, the guard. He is not a man of ink or of papyrus. He carries no reed pens, knows no sacred signs. Instead, he carries a spear. Across his shoulder hangs a simple shield, its wood darkened by sun and years. His body bears the strength of training, his eyes the habit of vigilance. Why guard a chamber so plain? Because within it lies power. The pharaoh's decrees, the temple's hymns, the kingdom's taxes, the prayers of eternity, all pass first through the hands of the scribe. And where there is power, there must be protection. The guard walks slowly along the corridor, his sandals scuffing softly against stone. From time to time he pauses, listening. His ears catch the distant hum of markets, the ring of chisels on stone, the faint murmur of apprentices at work. He does not enter the chamber. It is not his place. But his presence outside is as much a shield as the scroll chest within. Sometimes he leans upon his spear, watching the light shift across the temple courtyard. Other times he lifts his eyes to the walls, where carved falcons and cobras stare, down in eternal vigilance. The guard knows his watch is humble. Yet he also knows that without it, the scribes could not labor in peace in the cool of the evening. As shadows grow long, the scribe passes him with a nod. Words are not exchanged, but both men understand. The ink preserves Egypt's soul. The spear preserves the scribe. Together, they keep order. Close your eyes. Picture the still figure at his post, a silent sentinel by the door. Feel the weight of his watchful presence, unmoving as stone, patient as time. In the hush of the temple halls, the guard stands, a reminder that knowledge, like kings, must be protected. The day stretches long. The papyrus waits patiently, but the body of the scribe is not made of stone. His fingers ache first. Hours of guiding the reed, pinching its slender body between thumb and forefinger, leave his hands stiff, numb at times, shaking faintly when he pauses. He rubs the joints, bends each knuckle slowly, and then takes up the pen again. For the words cannot wait. Then come the eyes, straining over fine lines, measuring the spacing of symbols, watching that black ink does not blot, that red ink does not fade. The light of oil lamps flickers, casting shadows across the page. Every ripple of flame makes the work harder. The scribe leans close, blinking, rubbing tired lids, then bending once more to his task. The back stiffens next. Bent over the low table, his spine curves like the bow of a reed boat. The muscles knot, pull tight, send dull aches down his sides. He shifts upon the mat, but there is no true comfort. Still he writes. And always the mind wearies. The same prayers, the same numbers, the same decrees, copied again and again. Each line must be flawless, yet each line feels heavier than the last. Monotony presses upon him, like sand carried endlessly by the wind, yet the scribe does not stop. He has been trained for this, to endure the body's protest, to silence the mind's longing for rest. For in his ink lies permanence, and in his reed lies order. Without him, the kingdom falters. So he straightens his aching back, presses his cramped fingers once more to the reed, and continues. Close your eyes. Feel the dull ache in your own. Hands ease away. Let your breath slow. The weariness you carry tonight is not punishment, but proof of labor, proof of endurance. And as the scribe continues his endless lines, so too can you find peace and patience, in stillness, in rest. After line, symbol after symbol. The scribe's day is marked not by the sun, but by the flow of ink across papyrus. The reed scratches softly, a sound as steady as breathing. It moves in repetition, curve, line, dot, feather, spiral, again and again and again. Each mark familiar, yet each one demanding perfect care. There is little change. One decree resembles the next, one list of grain tallies another. A hymn to Osiris echoes the rhythm of a hymn to Ra. The words differ, but the work feels the same. The scribe does not complain. He was taught that monotony is part of discipline, that in the endless copying of words, a man learns patience, focus, and humility. But still, the mind drifts. Sometimes he thinks of the river outside, its surface glittering in the noon light. Sometimes he remembers the laughter of children in the square, or the voice of a merchant calling out his wares. And then he pulls his thoughts back again, anchoring himself in ink. The scroll grows heavy with lines. The pile of completed pages grows taller, while the bundle of blank papyrus seems never to grow smaller. Endless work, endless copying, a cycle as unbroken as the Nile's flood and retreat. Yet hidden in the repetition is a quiet kind of peace. The scribe knows that with every symbol, he becomes part of something larger than himself. That, though he may tire, the words will not. They will stand firm long after his hand is still. Close your eyes now. Imagine the rhythm of reed upon papyrus, repeating without haste, without end. Let it lull you, like the rhythm of oars upon the water, like the rise and fall of your own breath. The endless copying is wearisome, yes, but it is also eternal. And in eternity there is rest. The endless lines of ink, where each symbol must be exact, there is always the shadow of mistake. A reed may catch on the fibers of papyrus. A drop of ink may fall too heavily, spreading where it does not belong. A hand, weary from hours of labor, may slip, and a single stroke of black may turn a word into something else entirely. The scribe notices at once. His heart stills, for an error is not a small thing. It is not merely a blot. It is an insult to the gods if the text is sacred. It is a danger to the kingdom if the decree is royal. It is confusion for the ages if the record is wrong. There are ways to amend. The small knife lies ready, its sharp edge used to scrape away mistakes. The surface is smoothed again with care, and fresh ink laid upon the scar. But the papyrus never forgets. The mark of error always remains faintly beneath the surface, like a shadow that lingers. Some mistakes cannot be hidden. When they are found, the punishment may be stern. At best, a reprimand, a reminder of the gravity of the task. At worst, a scribe may be demoted, stripped of honor, or cast out from his post. For words are power, and power demands flawless guardianship. Apprentices learn this quickly. Their trembling hands grow steady, not only from practice, but from fear of error. They know that the reed pen is as sharp in consequence as any soldier's blade, and yet the scribe does not live in dread. He simply lives in caution, his every stroke deliberate, his every breath measured to the pace of the line. It is discipline, born not of fear alone, but of respect, for language, for memory, for the gods who watch. Close your eyes. Picture the faint scar left, where a mistake was scraped away. See how even imperfection can teach humility. Feel the careful breath of the scribe as he bends once more to the page, steady, unhurried, resolved never to stumble again. This is the way of ink, to forgive, but never to forget. Papyrus is the scribe's canvas, his river-born gift, his bridge, between thought and eternity. And yet, it is as fragile as the breath that carries a word. A sheet unrolls with a faint crackle, like dry leaves touched by wind. Its fibers hold firm, but they can split with little force. A careless fold, a press, too hard from the reed's point, and the surface tears a wound that cannot be truly mended. The ink, too, is vulnerable. A drop of water spilled from the jar, a smear from a tired hand brushed across the surface, and the words dissolve, symbols bleeding into one another until they vanish into meaningless stains. Time itself is the greatest enemy. Scrolls kept in, shadow and dry air may last for centuries, but left in damp places, they soften, curl, and crumble into dust. The voices once so carefully preserved disappear, leaving silence where memory once lived. The scribe knows this well. He handles each sheet as if it were skin, alive, sensitive, in need of protection. He stores the finished works in wooden chests, wraps them in linen, places them in the safest corners of the temple. Still, he knows that even care cannot last. Forever. It is a strange truth that men labor endlessly, their eyes straining, their fingers cramping, to set words upon papyrus, and yet the papyrus itself is mortal. The Nile gives, but it does not grant eternity. Perhaps that is why the scribes whisper their trust to the stone carvers, why some words are set into walls and monuments. Stone resists time. Papyrus surrenders. But while it lasts, it carries a softness that stone never can, a breath, a pulse, a human touch. Close your eyes now. Imagine the delicate sheet between your fingers, light as a dried petal, ready to crumble if held too tightly. Feel the hush that comes with such fragility, the reverence it demands. Every word upon it is not only written, but entrusted. The chamber grows still. The marketplace outside fades. The chants of priests become distant echoes. Here, within these walls, there is only the silence of labor. It is not an empty silence. It is full of quiet sounds, the scratch of reed upon papyrus, soft as a moth's. Wings, the faint breath of the scribe, slow and measured. The rustle of linen as he shifts upon his mat. No laughter breaks this room, no hurried steps, no chatter of voices. Only the steady rhythm of work, repetition folded into stillness. This silence is both burden and comfort. Hours pass without change, yet within that stillness the scribe finds focus. The world narrows to ink and line, to symbol and meaning. Distraction falls away like sand sliding from stone. The apprentices whisper softly in corners, but their words soon fade. Even they learn that to enter this silence is to honor the work. For every careless sound might ripple across the scribe's concentration, disturbing the fragile order of his task. In this chamber, time itself seems to bend. The hours are not counted by sun or shadow, but by columns of text, by lines filled, by scrolls completed. The silence holds him, carrying him deeper into the endless flow of words. Close your eyes now. Listen for the quiet scratch of a pen in your imagination. Hear how it repeats, soft and steady, like rain against stone, like the tide at night. Let that rhythm guide your breath. Inhale with the stroke, exhale with the pause. This is the silence of labor, not emptiness, but devotion. a hush filled with purpose, a calm that turns hours into eternity. Upon the papyrus, symbols begin to bloom hieroglyphs, the sacred script of Egypt. They are not merely letters, not simple marks of sound. They are living shapes, each carrying meaning, each carrying power. A bird drawn in ink is more than a bird. It is flight, it is voice, it is the spirit of the skies. A lotus painted with care is not only a flower. It is rebirth, the rising of the sun, the promise of new life. Even the smallest curve or feather is alive with meaning, anchored to the mysteries of the gods. The scribe copies them slowly, with reverence in every line. He does not hurry, for he knows that each sign is a prayer, a vessel of divine order. Together they form not just words, but an entire world, a world where sound, image, and spirit are one. To the untrained eye, the scroll may seem a forest of strange shapes, but to the scribe it is harmony. The falcon of Horus, the staff of power, the feather of truth, the ankh of life, all speak together, a chorus of eternity laid upon papyrus. He knows too that the gods themselves are said to read in hieroglyphs, that Thoth, the great scribe of heaven, invented them as gifts for mankind. Thus, to write them is to share in divine creation, to echo the work of the gods. The reed glides, the ink flows, and the sacred signs take form. They do not simply record, they shape reality. What is written may guide a soul to the afterlife, may summon protection, may preserve a king's glory for 1,000 generations. Close your eyes. Picture the symbols glowing faintly in the lamplight. Falcons, flowers, spirals, eyes, feathers. A quiet constellation of meaning. Hear the slow scratch of the reed as each one comes alive. Feel the weight of a language that is not only spoken, but eternal. This is the gift of the scribe, to bring the sacred hieroglyphs into the world, to let ink hold what spirit first imagined. Above every stroke of the reed, above every line of ink upon papyrus, rests the eye of Thoth. The scribe knows this well. He does not write alone. He writes under the gaze of the God of wisdom, the divine scribe, the keeper of truth. In temple carvings, Thoth is shown with the head of an ibis, long beak curved, eyes calm and eternal. He holds the palette and the reed, just as the scribes of earth do. To look upon him is to see a mirror of their own labor, yet raised to the realm of the divine. When the scribe begins his day, he whispers Thoth's name. When his hand trembles with fatigue, he remembers Thoth's steady touch. When he fears mistakes, he trusts that Thoth guides the reed. It is not pride that carries his work, but devotion, a sense that he is a servant of something greater than himself. The apprentices speak of it in hushed tones, that Thoth weighs the deeds of scribes just as he weighs the souls of the dead. That careless writing is not only error, but disrespect to the God who gave mankind letters. And so the chamber is kept pure, the work done with patience, the silence observed. The scribe feels it sometimes, as if a presence stands just behind his shoulder. Not a threatening presence, but a watchful one. A calm certainty that his labor is seen, that his devotion is known. It comforts him. Even in his weariness, he does not despair. For if his work honors Thoth, then it will endure. If his lines are true, they will be remembered. In the God's eye, nothing is lost. Close your eyes. Imagine that steady gaze upon you, not harsh, not judging, but guiding. A presence that watches each step, each breath, each small act of care. As the scribe finds peace in Thoth's watchful eye, so too may you rest beneath its calm light. Not all ink is the same. To the scribe, each color carries a meaning, a weight, a power. Black ink is the body of the text. It is steady, enduring, the ink of law, of history, of daily record. Like the Nile in flood, it flows ceaselessly, binding words into permanence. But red I in K, that is different. It is not for common use. It is the color of fire, of warning, of gods and demons alike. It burns on the papyrus, demanding attention. The scribe dips his reed into the red well, only for moments of wait. When he writes the name of a god, he writes it in red. When he marks the beginning of a new section, the symbol is in red. When danger is named, when a curse is set down, when evil is warned against, it glows in red. The priests whisper that red ink holds magic, that it can repel evil, or summon it if misused, that a single word in red has the strength of 100 in black. The scribe does not question. He simply obeys tradition, letting the color speak where men should not. On the papyrus before him, the lines alternate, black flowing like the river, red gleaming like the sun at dusk. Together they form a balance, earth and fire, mortal and divine dot. He cleans the reed carefully after each dip in red, for it must not mingle with black. The two are kept apart, as sacred things often are. To let them blur would be to let chaos seep into order. Close your eyes now. Picture the page, its black lines calm and steady, its red symbols bright and fierce. See how even color becomes a kind of magic, a language beyond words. To write is power, but to write in red is to touch the edges of mystery. Every stroke of the reed, every line of ink upon papyrus, is more than a record of the present. It is a bridge into eternity. The scribe knows that men are fragile. The farmer's hands grow weak. The soldier's strength fades. Even kings, with crowns of gold and armies at their command, are swallowed by time. But words, if carefully written, may endure long after the flesh has turned to dust. He thinks of tombs, lined with scrolls and painted walls. Prayers written there guide the dead through the halls of the afterlife. Without the words, the soul would wander lost. With them, it finds the way to peace. He thinks too of laws, decrees of pharaohs, records of harvests. Centuries may pass, but the ink will still whisper. This was measured. This was spoken. This was remembered. And so, when the scribe bends over his work, he dreams not of today, but of forever. He knows that long after his name is forgotten, his lines may still be read, that in a temple, in a tomb, in the hand of a future scribe, his symbols may rise again. It is a kind of immortality, not of body, not of voice, but of ink. A small flame, carried forward, generation after generation, through the fragile fibers of papyrus. Close your eyes. Picture the scrolls sleeping in wooden chests, quiet and safe. Picture them opened 100 years from now, their words still clear, their meanings still alive. Feel the calm that comes with knowing that nothing is truly lost if it is written. This is the scribe's dream of eternity, to grant life not only to himself, but to his people, his gods, his world. Not through flesh, but through words. Not every scroll is meant for every eye. Some words are sacred, meant only for priests, for scribes, for the gods themselves. And so, to protect them, scribes turn to curses. Upon the margins of papyrus, in small deliberate lines, they wrote warnings. Harsh words to any who might steal, tamper, or profane what was holy. Let him who defiles this text be struck by blindness. Let his family wither like reeds in drought. Let his name be erased from memory, never to be spoken again. These were not idle threats. To Egyptians, words carried power. To write a curse was to make it real. The unworthy who ignored. The warning believed themselves doomed, and belief, in such a land, was power enough. The scribes, careful and reverent, did not write such lines lightly. But they knew that sacred knowledge, unguarded, might be lost, misused, or mocked. Better that a thief tremble, better that a careless hand hesitate, than risk the silence of forgotten prayers. Even tombs bore such protections. In dark chambers beneath the earth, Hieroglyphs warned intruders that their blood would turn to fire, their souls weighed down in the afterlife, if they dared disturb the rest of the dead. And so, Papyrus too was guarded, not with locks of bronze, not with soldiers' spears, but with ink, with words sharper than any blade, with curses that reached beyond death. Close your eyes. Picture a scroll resting in shadow, its symbols glowing faintly in the lamplight. See the margin, where a warning lies in red ink, quiet but fierce. Feel the chill of mystery, the hush of power hidden in simple lines. This is how the scribe defends his work, not only by writing, but by binding his words with fear and faith. The hours of steady writing pass slowly, measured by ink strokes, not by the sun. At last the scribe sets down his reed, for even duty must bow to the body's need for rest. He straightens his aching back, rolling his shoulders, feeling the stiffness of long labor. The room is silent, save for the faint rustle of papyrus and the quiet breath he draws. A servant enters softly, carrying a low tray. Upon it rests a small jug of cool water, a round loaf of bread, and a cluster of dates still clinging to their stem. The scribe nods in thanks, but speaks no word. The offering of food is quiet, like a pause between lines of text. He lifts the jug, drinks slowly. The water is fresh, drawn from a shaded jar, its coolness spreading through his chest like relief itself. The bread is coarse but filling, the taste of barley plain yet comforting. The dates are sweet, sticky against his fingers, their honeyed flesh a small blessing. Outside, the sounds of the market drift faintly. A donkey brays, a merchant calls out a price, children laugh in the dust. But within this chamber, there is only stillness, a moment stolen from the long rhythm of duty. The scribe closes his eyes, breathing deeply. In this pause, he remembers that even the gods rest, that Mat, the balance of all things, demands not endless toil, but harmony. Soon, he will take up the reed again. Soon, the black and red will flow across papyrus once more. But for now, he sits quietly, hands resting, mind empty, listening to the hush of the chamber and the faint crackle of the oil lamp's flame. Close your eyes. Let your own breath slow, as if you too had set down your burdens for a moment. Taste the coolness of water, the sweetness of dates, the simple gift of bread. This is the call to rest, small, humble, yet as necessary as ink itself. The meal of a scribe is not grand. No golden platters, no feasts of meat and wine. It is simple, humble, yet enough to carry him through the day. Before him lies a round loaf of bread, baked in a clay oven, its crust firm, its heart dense with barley flour. It crumbles slightly at the touch, leaving a soft dust upon his fingers. He breaks it carefully, chews slowly. The taste is earthy, honest, the same taste shared by farmers, by laborers, by priests alike. Beside it stands a jug of beer, not strong, as the drink of later ages, but thick, sweet, nourishing. It is made from bread itself, fermented until it foams gently at the lip of the jug. The scribe lifts it, takes a slow sip. The liquid is cool, grainy, a mixture of sustenance and refreshment. It is food as much as drink. Sometimes a handful of onions or leeks accompany the bread, sharp against the tongue, a reminder of the earth's strength. Sometimes figs, their sweetness a welcome gift. But always, bread and beer remain at the heart. They are the foundation, the daily rhythm, the common bond of Egypt's people. The scribe eats in silence, grateful for the pause. He knows the pharaoh dines more richly, that nobles taste delicacies he will never see. But he does not envy them, for in this simple meal he finds balance. Enough to fill his belly, enough to calm his thirst, enough to let his hand return to the reed. Close your eyes now. Imagine the taste of warm bread, the cool sip of sweet beer, the quiet satisfaction of hunger eased. There is no need for more. In simplicity, there is peace. And in peace, the scribe gathers strength to continue his endless work. The sun climbs higher, and with it, the heat spreads across the city. Stone walls grow warm. Courtyards shimmer in the brightness, and the air itself seems to tremble. The scribe steps outside, scrolls set aside for a moment, and walks slowly toward the grove of palms that stand near the riverbank. Their tall trunks rise slender and sure, their crowns a fan of green that catches the sunlight and breaks it into fragments of shade. Beneath them, the ground is cooler. The breeze moves gently through the fronds, a soft rustle, like whispers carried from one tree to another. The scribe lowers himself onto a reed mat laid in the shadows. The earth beneath is firm, but touched by the coolness of water not far away. He stretches his legs, lets his shoulders ease, and breathes deeply. The air here smells of river reeds and dust, mingled with the sweetness of dates that hang heavy above. Birds chatter faintly in the branches, darting between the leaves, their wings catching glimpses of sun. Around him, others rest as well. A farmer sets down his hoe, leans against a trunk, and closes his eyes. Two children chase each other in the distance, their laughter softened in the shade. Even a dog curls quietly beneath the trees, its body rising and falling with slow, contented breaths. The scribe feels his own breath slow, his chest rise and fall in rhythm with the rustle of the palms. For a short while, the heat does not press, the work does not call. There is only shade and stillness, and the comfort of a land that offers pause as well as labor. Close your eyes. Feel the cool shade above you, the hush of leaves in the breeze, the relief of heat lifting from your skin. Let the quiet of the palms wrap around you like shelter. This is Egypt too, not only toil and sun, but rest beneath the trees. In the shade of the palms, or within the quiet corners of the temple, scribes sometimes pause in their labor to share a few words with one another. Their voices are low, never breaking the hush of the place, yet filled with a quiet familiarity. One speaks of ink, how soot from yesterday's lamps makes for smoother black than the ashes gathered too quickly. Another shares how he trims his reeds, cutting them at just the right angle to give a stroke that lasts longer before fraying. They exchange small secrets of the craft, not written in scrolls, but carried from hand to hand, from teacher to student, from friend to friend. Yet, like all men, scribes speak also of life beyond their work. One mentions his son, just beginning to scratch symbols upon shards of pottery. Another speaks of a neighbor who traded a goat for a new patch of fertile land. Sometimes they whisper of the pharaoh's court, the rumors carried on servants' lips. At other times, they laugh softly over a story told in the market, a joke shared by fishermen at dawn. Their words are never loud, but in the midst of endless copying, this small fellowship lightens the burden. It reminds each of them that they are not alone with their ink and silence, that beyond the scratch of reeds, there are voices, faces, companionship. When the talk is done, they part with a nod. No farewell needed, no loud goodbyes. Each returns to his chamber, to his scroll, to his waiting lines. But the warmth of those quiet conversations lingers in the heart, like an ember that glows long after the fire has faded. Close your eyes now. Hear the murmur of soft voices, carrying talk of tools and families, of small joys and daily burdens. Feel the comfort of companionship, gentle, steady, woven into the silence of labor. This, too, is part of the scribe's life. Not only solitude, but the quiet bond of those who share the same ink-stained hands. The shade of the palms has offered its comfort. A bread and beer have eased his hunger. The quiet voices of fellow scribes have lightened his heart. But now the moment of pause is ended. It is time for the scribe to return to his work. He rises, slowly stretching his arms, feeling the stiffness in his back ease just enough. Dust is brushed gently from his linen, sand shaken from his sandals. The sun is higher now, its heat pressing down upon courtyards and walls. But inside the chamber, there is still shadow, still the faint coolness of clay. The scrolls wait, rolled and bound, like silent voices calling him back. The ink palette rests patiently, the wells of black and red glistening faintly. The sharpened reeds lie ready, their golden stalks arranged in careful order. Everything is prepared. Only the scribe himself must begin again. He lowers himself onto the reed mat. The familiar creak greets him, a sound he has heard 1,000 times before. His hand reaches for the reed, his fingers wrap around its slender form. At once he feels the weight of duty settle upon his shoulders again. There is no resentment in him. This is his life, his calling, his honor. To others, the work may seem endless, monotonous, a prison of ink and repetition. But to him, it is service. Each line copied is a thread in the vast tapestry of Egypt. Each symbol drawn is a stone laid upon the foundation of eternity. The reed dips into the ink, and the soft scratch returns. It is as though the pause had never been. The silence of labor fills the chamber once more, steady and unbroken. Close your eyes. Feel the rhythm of duty settling in again, the calm of repetition, the comfort of knowing exactly what must be done. Breathe with the scribe, slow and steady, as the words return to life beneath his hand. This is the return to work, quiet, solemn, yet filled with purpose. Not all of the scribe's work is done in silence. Sometimes his duty calls him to the bright courtyards of the nobles, where the laughter of children echoes against painted walls. Here he becomes not only a writer, but a teacher. The children of the wealthy, the sons of officials and priests, must learn to read and to write, for knowledge is the ladder that lifts them higher in life. He spreads before them shards of pottery, smooth pieces of limestone, small scraps of papyrus practice surfaces for clumsy hands. He places a reed pen in each child's grasp, guides their fingers gently, showing them how to hold, how to tilt, how to let the ink flow in careful strokes. The children frown in concentration, their tongues peeking at the corner of their mouths. Some laugh when their lines wobble, others sigh in frustration. The scribe is patient. He corrects them with calm words, never harsh, for he knows that skill is born not from fear, but from practice repeated like breath. He teaches them the sacred signs, the ankh for life, the feather for truth, the falcon for the god Horus. Their small voices murmur the names, soft and uncertain at first, then stronger. As memory takes root, beyond letters, he teaches them wisdom. He recites proverbs from old scrolls. Do not be arrogant because of your knowledge, for a wise man listens as well as he speaks. The children sit cross-legged, heads tilted, letting the words settle into them like seeds in the earth. Sun lowers slowly, casting long golden shadows across the courtyard. At last the lesson ends. The children scatter, their laughter rising once more, reeds abandoned in their haste to run. The scribe gathers the shards, sets them aside for another day, and smiles faintly. For though they may forget much, some part of what he has given them will remain. And in those small hands lies the promise of Egypt's future. Scribes, priests, officials, voices yet to come. Close your eyes. Hear the soft murmur of children repeating their letters. See the small hands, clutching reeds, their lines crooked, yet full of possibility. Feel the patience of the scribe, steady and calm, as he passes his knowledge forward. This too is his labor, not only to write, but to teach, to plant words in the soil of new hearts. From the quiet chamber of papyrus and ink, the scribe is sometimes called into the open air, to walk among the storehouses of grain. These vast buildings rise low and wide, their walls of mud brick thick to keep the heat away. Within them lies Egypt's true wealth, the harvest of the Nile's flood, measured, stored, and guarded. For from this grain come bread and beer, the daily sustenance of the people. The scribe carries his scroll, his sharpened reed, and his palette of inks. He walks past heavy wooden doors, past guards with spears, and into the dim coolness of the storehouse halls. Inside, the air is filled with the scent of dust and earth, the dry sweetness of barley and emmer wheat. Stacks rise in tall mounds, each one carefully counted, each one marked for the pharaoh, for the temples, for the people. The scribe begins his work. He notes how many baskets are carried in, how many jars of grain are sealed with clay, how many sacks are taken out to feed the workers on the temples. His red scratches quickly, columns of numbers forming neatly across the scroll. Farmers wait nervously as their harvest is measured. Too little declared, and suspicion may fall upon them. Too much taken, and their families may go hungry. So they watch the scribe closely, knowing that his ink decides their share. The guards watch as well, for grain is as precious as gold. Thieves may covet it, but the pharaoh's eyes are everywhere, and the scribe's scroll is proof of order. Inspection is complete. He ties the scroll with cord, seals it with wax, and hands it to an official. The numbers are now truth, preserved in ink. No farmer, no merchant, no whisper of complaint can stand against the record of the scribe. Close your eyes. Smell the dust of the grain. Hear the scrape of baskets set upon the floor. See the long lines of workers waiting in silence. Feel the calm of numbers written, turning chaos into order, harvest into history. This is another face of the scribe's duty, to walk among the storehouses, to weigh the lifeblood of Egypt, and to set it down so that all may endure. Not all of the scribe's work lies in temples or storehouses. Often he is called upon to act as a messenger of words, writing letters that must travel across Egypt's vast land. An official comes to him with instructions. A noble wishes to send thanks for a gift. A governor in a far province must be told of new taxes. A captain of soldiers needs supplies delivered to the frontier. The words may be simple, but they must be set down with care. The scribe smooths a fresh sheet of papyrus, dips his reed into the ink, and begins. He writes in clear, steady lines, his symbols chosen so no meaning may be lost. Politeness and respect frame every message, for in Egypt, words carry not only facts, but honor. When the letter is complete, he rolls the papyrus, ties it with linen cord, and seals it with wax or clay. The seal bears the mark of the sender, a scarab, a falcon, a lotus. Without it, the letter would be doubted. With it, it becomes the true voice of the one who commands. A courier takes the scroll, slips it into a pouch, and begins the journey. By boat upon the Nile, by foot across dusty roads, the letter will travel farther and faster than its writer ever will. The scribe knows this well. His words, though written in the stillness of his chamber, may cross deserts, pass through villages, arrive in halls he will never see. Through ink, his presence stretches far beyond his body. And so, he writes not as though speaking to one man, but as though speaking to the land itself. Each line a thread, binding province to province, temple to temple, soldier to governor. Through his correspondence, the kingdom stays whole. Close your eyes. Imagine the rolled papyrus carried carefully by boat, the courier watching the riverbanks drift by, the seal unbroken, the message safe. Hear the distant voices of officials reading words he once set down, their decisions guided by lines born in his quiet chamber. This too is the scribe's power, to send his voice farther than his feet may walk, to let ink travel where he cannot. When? The Nile floods and then recedes. The land is renewed, rich with dark silt, ready for seed. But the waters also erase what men have said, the lines between fields, the markers of boundaries. And so, It is the scribe who must restore order to the earth. He walks the fields with officials, his reed pens and scrolls carried carefully. Beside him, surveyors stretch ropes, knotted at measured lengths, laying them straight across the damp soil. The cords mark where one farmer's plot ends and another begins. The scribe watches, notes the measurements, and sets them down in ink. He writes the name of the landowner, the width of the field, the crops to be sown. Each line he draws upon papyrus is as firm as if it were carved in stone. Farmers gather nearby, their faces anxious. For a man's livelihood depends on where the rope falls. Too much land taken, and his children may hunger. Too little declared, and the Pharaoh's share may not be met. The scribe's reed decides with quiet strokes what the earth itself will not declare. When disputes arise, the scribe's scroll becomes the judge. The farmers may argue, the neighbors may quarrel, but the ink is final. It binds the land as surely as the river binds Egypt. At day's end, the papyrus is rolled, sealed, and carried back to the temple. The boundaries of the fields, once washed away by flood, now live again in words. The river may rise and fall, but the scribe ensures that Egypt's order remains. Close your eyes. Picture the wide fields, still damp from the Nile's retreat. See the ropes stretched across the earth, straight and measured. Hear the scratch of reed as the scribe records the land, turning mud and silence into law and memory. This is his power, to give shape to the formless, to draw lines of order upon the flood's forgetting. There is perhaps no task more sacred to the scribe than preparing funerary texts. For these are not words meant for the living. They are guides for the dead. When a nobleman or priest dies, his family comes to the scribes. They ask that the proper spells be written, so the soul may journey safely through the shadowed halls. Of the afterlife, the scribe unrolls fresh papyrus. He dips his reed into black ink, then into red for the names of gods. And slowly, carefully, he begins. Spells to protect against serpents. Spells to open the gates of the underworld. Spells to call upon Osiris, that the dead may rise with him in eternity. Prayers to Ra, that the soul may join the sun's daily voyage across the sky. Each line is written with reverence. For the scribe knows these words are more than symbols. They are tools, weapons, lamps of guidance in the darkness, beyond death. Sometimes he copies from older scrolls, preserving what was handed down. Sometimes he adds the name of the departed, so the spell may belong to them alone. The red ink burns bright upon the page, a shield against evil, a beacon of divine favor. When the work is complete, the scroll is rolled and placed within the tomb. It rests near the body, beside amulets of stone and gold, so that when the soul awakens, it will find words waiting, words to speak, words to follow, words to guide it home. The scribe leaves the tomb in silence, knowing that though he will never see its journey, his ink has lit a path through eternity. Close your eyes. Picture the stillness of a tomb chamber, lamps flickering against painted walls. See the scroll laid gently beside the body, its lines glowing faintly in the dim light. Feel the hush, the weight of words meant not for today, but for forever. This is the labor of funerary texts, to give the dead their voice, to give the soul its map, to let ink carry life beyond death. The day draws toward its end. The ink jars are nearly empty, the reeds worn down from use. The scribe straightens his aching back and turns at last to the task of closing the scrolls. One by one, the papyrus sheets are rolled carefully, their edges aligned, their surfaces smoothed with the flat of his hand. Each roll crackles faintly, as if whispering in thanks for the words it now holds. He ties them with cords of linen or fiber, tight enough to hold, but never so tight that the papyrus might crease. Some are wrapped in cloth for protection, others placed within wooden chests, their lids carved with simple designs, ankhs for life, eyes for protection, lotus flowers for rebirth. Every scroll has its place. Sacred hymns are stored within the temple vaults. Royal decrees are sealed and guarded. Records of harvest and taxes are sent to the storehouses. The scribe notes each one as he stacks them, for the order of knowledge is as important as the knowledge. Itself the chamber grows quiet as the scrolls vanish from the table. Where once there were scattered sheets, now there is neatness, a sense of completion. The tools of the day's labor are set aside, awaiting tomorrow's work. The scribe rests, his hand on the final chest. It is heavy not only with papyrus, but with memory, with prayers, with laws, with lives. In his care, these words will outlast the voices that spoke them, and endure long after the hands that wrote them are dust. Close your eyes. Hear the faint crackle of papyrus rolling shut. See the cords tied, the chests filled, the chamber slowly emptying of its burden. Feel the calm that comes with completion, the deep quiet that follows a long day's work. This is the scribe's final task before night, to close the scrolls, to seal knowledge in stillness, to give rest to words, as he too seeks rest for himself. The scrolls are closed, their words safely stored. Now the scribe turns to his tools, for they too must be cared for, lest tomorrow's work begin in disorder. He gathers the reed pens first. Some are worn, their tips frayed from long use. These he sets aside, to be cut again or discarded. The sharper reeds he rinses carefully in a small bowl of clean water, washing away the clinging traces of ink. The water darkens slowly, a faint cloud of black and red swirling together, then settling into stillness. The palette is next. He tilts it gently, letting the last drops of water loosen the dried pigment. With a cloth, he wipes it clean, though. The stains of years remain, marks of labor that no washing can erase. They are not flaws, but memories, silent proof of countless lines written. The jars of soot and ochre are closed, their mouths sealed with shards of clay. He sets them in. Their chest, safe from dust, safe from damp. For ink is precious, and to waste it would be disrespect to the earth that gave it, to the gods who sanctify it, to the craft itself. The knife, too, is cleaned and set aside. Its edge glints faintly in the lamplight, sharp and patient, waiting. For the next reed to be cut, the chamber grows quieter still, as if the tools themselves sigh into rest. The day is ending, and they, like the scribe, deserve their moment of stillness. Close your eyes. Hear the soft splash of reeds rinsed in water. See the faint swirl of ink dissolving, black and red mingling, before sinking into silence. Feel this calm of order restored, the peace of knowing that all is ready for tomorrow. This is the cleansing of the tools, a ritual not only of care, but of respect. For in serving his instruments, the scribe honors the craft itself. The work is done. The scrolls are sealed, the tools cleansed, the chamber quiet. Now the scribe steps outside to meet the evening air. The sun leans low in the western sky, its golden light spilling across the Nile. The river glows as if it were molten bronze, each ripple catching fire, each wave carrying the day's last. Warmth downstream, boats drift slowly homeward. Their sails, dyed brown and red, glow like embers in the fading light. Oars dip softly, the rhythm of water against wood, a lullaby older than memory. On the riverbank, farmers lead their animals back. From the fields, children run laughing along the shore, their shadows stretching long and thin. Women bend to fill jars, lifting them to their shoulders with practiced ease, their voices carrying in gentle song. The scribe watches silently. All day his eyes have traced symbols, but now they rest on living hieroglyphs, the figures of his people moving against the glowing horizon. The farmer, the child, the mother with her jar, each one a word written upon the earth, each one part of the story he serves. To preserve, the air is cooler now. A breeze comes off the water, carrying the scent of wet reeds, the faint sweetness of river mud. It brushes his face, and for the first time all day, his shoulders soften. His body exhales fully. The sky deepens into violet. The first star flickers. Above the horizon, a quiet herald of night. The scribe lingers a little longer, letting the sight settle into him. For tomorrow, he will return to ink and papyrus, but tonight, he drinks the peace of the river at sunset. Close your eyes. See the Nile glowing in gold. Hear the dip of oars. Feel the cool breeze against your skin. Let the fading light soften your thoughts and carry you gently toward rest. This is evening in Egypt, the day's last gift. The Nile in quiet flame, a moment of peace before the hush of night. As the sun sinks lower, the scribe returns to his modest home. The day's work is behind him, and before him waits the simple comfort of supper. There is no feast, no lavish spread as in the halls of nobles. Only the humble fare shared by many in Egypt. A clay bowl of lentils, cooked slowly until soft, seasoned with garlic and herbs. The taste is earthy, filling, a reminder of the soil's quiet gift. Beside it lies a round loaf of bread, still warm from the oven, its crust cracked, its center dense and nourishing. He breaks it with his hands, using each piece to scoop the lentils, the grains blending with the pulse of the meal. There are figs, split open to reveal their sweet, red hearts. Their juice clings to his fingers, a small luxury after a long day. And perhaps a few onions or leeks, sharp on the tongue. A contrast to the sweetness of fruit. To drink, a jug of beer, thick and cloudy, brewed from bread itself. It is not strong, but hearty, a meal as much as a drink. He sips slowly, letting the coolness ease the heat of the day. The scribe eats in silence, sitting cross-legged upon a mat. The chamber is dim, lit by the small flame of an oil lamp. Outside, the voices of neighbors drift faintly, but here there is only stillness, only the quiet satisfaction of hunger eased. He does not envy the banquets of the rich, for in his simple supper he finds balance. Enough for strength, enough for peace, enough to rise tomorrow and take up the reed once more. Close your eyes. Taste the warm bread, the lentils rich and earthy, the figs sweet upon the tongue. Feel the calm of the scribe's evening meal, humble, steady, complete. This is his supper, a gift of the land, a pause before the hush of night. After supper, the chamber of the scribe is no longer filled with silence alone. The sounds of family, life return, gentle and familiar, like the evening breeze. Children tumble across the floor, their laughter echoing against the mud brick walls. One chases another, feet pattering softly over the woven mats. Their games are simple, a carved wooden toy, a ball made of cloth, yet their joy fills the room more brightly than any oil lamp could. A wife or mother hums as she tidies, her song, low and steady, a melody older than memory. She gathers jars, straightens baskets, folds linen for the morning. Her presence carries peace, a rhythm of care as natural as the Nile's flow. The scribe listens, his body still weary, but his heart eased by these voices. He asks his children to bring him a shard of pottery, and with a reed dipped in leftover ink, he scratches a few signs for them to copy. Their hands wobble, their strokes uneven, but their eyes shine with delight. They are learning, as he once learned, through patience, through play. Neighbors' voices drift faintly through the open doorway, a greeting shared, a laugh carried on the evening air. The village breathes together, each home a small flame. In the great hearth of Egypt, the scribe smiles quietly. For all the weight of his duties, for Pharaoh, for temple, for eternity, it is here, in the warmth of his family, that his spirit finds rest. Close your eyes. Hear the soft laughter of children, the quiet hum of a mother's song, the murmur of neighbors in the evening air. Feel the simple joy of voices familiar, weaving comfort around the weary heart. This is the scribe's truest wealth, not scrolls or ink, but the gentle music of family life at day's end. Night settles slowly over the city. The last glow of the sun fades beyond the western horizon, and shadows deepen in the narrow streets. Inside the scribe's home, oil lamps are lit. The flame rises with a soft sigh, a small tongue of fire fed by linen wick and the steady richness of pressed oil. Its light is gentle, not bright like the sun, but warm, golden, a quiet glow that pushes back the darkness. The lamp flickers against the walls, casting shapes that dance and sway. The carved wooden stool becomes taller in shadow. A basket leans into the form of a great jar. Children's laughter softens, their play slowing as the light deepens, their eyelids heavy in its calm glow. The scribe watches the flame carefully, for oil is precious, not to be wasted. Every drop is drawn from olives pressed with care, and each jar is guarded as closely as grain. The wick must be trimmed just so, the flame kept low, so that the lamp may burn through the evening hours. Lowers his scroll chest near the wall, the shadows falling across it like a curtain. The room becomes a place of stillness, the kind of stillness that welcomes reflection. Outside, the streets are dotted with other lamps. From one doorway to another, their lights shimmer faintly, a constellation of flames across the city. Together, they mirror the heavens above, stars on earth answering stars in the sky. The scribe breathes deeply, letting the lamp's glow soften the edges of his thoughts. The day's work drifts away, carried into the shadows. Only peace remains. Close your eyes. See the small golden flame swaying gently. Hear the hush of night gathering around it. Feel the calm warmth it brings to the room. This is the gift of awe. Evening lamps, a tender glow, a circle of safety, a quiet guide into the arms of night. When the lamps grow low, the scribe steps outside once more. Above him stretches the wide sky, dark and endless, studded with the bright fire of stars. Here in Thebes, the heavens seem vast and close, as if the gods themselves had scattered jewels across a velvet cloth. The river reflects their glow, each ripple turning starlight into liquid flame. The scribe tilts his head back, letting his weary eyes trace the constellations. There is Orion the hunter, whom Egyptians call Sa, guardian of the afterlife. There is Sirius, the shining star whose rising foretells the Nile's flood. To farmers, it means life. To priests, it means divine order. To scribes, it means that all things are written in the heavens as surely as they are, written on papyrus. He remembers the teachings of astrologers, that the stars are not only lights, but signs, a map of fate stretched across the sky. Pharaohs look to them for guidance, priests for prophecy. And though the scribe's task is humble, he too feels their silent pull. The night air is cool. The city has quieted, its noise replaced by the chorus of crickets, the occasional bark of a distant dog, the splash of oars from a late boat upon the river. Above all, the stars shine steady, unchanging, eternal. The scribe whispers a prayer to Nut, goddess of the sky, whose body arches above the world. He whispers also to Thoth, asking that his wisdom be as constant as the stars. In the stillness, he feels as though the heavens listen. Close your eyes. See the sky over Thebes, bright with stars, reflected in the slow waters of the Nile. Feel the quiet of the night, the vastness above, the peace of knowing that the same stars watch over all who labor, all who dream. This is Egypt's night. The eternal canopy, the stars that shine over scribes and kings alike, reminding all that time itself is written first in the heavens. Night deepens. The lamps burn lower, their flames small and steady. The scribe lies upon his reed mat, his body weary, his thoughts drifting like the slow current of the Nile. Before sleep takes him, he whispers once more the name of Thoth. For just as the god watches over his writing by day, so too may he guide the scribe's dreams by night. He prays for wisdom, not only in letters, but in judgment, in patience, in clarity of mind. He asks that his hand remain steady, his eyes sharp, his work free of error. And he asks that, in sleep, he might glimpse truths too deep for waking hours. The chamber grows quiet. Outside, the city rests, its sounds faded to silence. The scribe breathes slowly, his chest rising and falling in calm rhythm in his dreams. He sees himself seated beside Thoth, the ibis-headed god glowing faintly in the moonlight. They sit at a vast table of stars, its surface shimmering like a scroll of the heavens. Thoth places a reed pen in the scribe's hand, but instead of ink, it draws lines of light. Symbols appear, ankhs, feathers, falcons, each glowing like fireflies against the darkness. The scribe writes without weariness. His back does not ache, his eyes do not tire. The symbols flow endlessly, forming rivers of wisdom that wind through eternity. And Thoth, silent and watchful, nods in quiet approval. The dream begins to fade. The scribe feels peace. For whether the vision was truth or only shadow, it has left him lighter, his spirit calm. He sleeps on, wrapped in stillness, carried gently into the heart of night. Close your eyes. Imagine the God of wisdom watching over you, his calm gaze steady, his presence soft as moonlight. Feel the ease of dreams, the hush of thoughts drifting into silence. Like the scribe, let your burdens be carried away, leaving only peace. This is the gift of dreams, a night's embrace, a whisper of Thoth, a promise of wisdom for tomorrow. The city sleeps. The voices of merchants, the songs of priests, the scratching of reeds upon papyrus, all are quiet now. Only the hush of night remains. The Nile flows dark and endless beneath the stars. Its surface shimmers faintly, catching the light of the moon, breaking it into silver fragments. They drift downstream with the current. Boats rest at their moorings, their sails tied, their ropes creaking gently in the night breeze. In the fields beyond, the land lies still. The furrows carved by farmers wait for dawn, their soil damp with the memory of the river. Animals sleep in their pens, breath rising in slow rhythm, as calm as the sky itself. Within the city walls, lamps burn low in doorways. Families curl upon mats, children tucked close, their dreams mingling with the whisper of wind. Dogs stretch in the dust, ears twitching at distant sounds, yet even they do not stir. The temples stand tall and silent, their columns black against the starlit sky. Painted gods look out from shadow, their eyes unblinking, their presence eternal. The priests have ended their chants, but incense still clings faintly to the air, a sweetness that lingers like a memory. The scribe's home is quiet too. His family sleeps, their breaths steady and soft. Beside them, the scribe rests in peace, his tools cleansed, his scrolls safe, his labor entrusted to tomorrow. Above all, the heavens watch. Nut, goddess of the sky, arches her star-filled body over the world. The constellations gleam, steady and timeless, as if writing their own eternal scroll upon the darkness. Close your eyes. Hear the silence of the city at rest, the slow current of the river, the faint creak of boats in the night. Feel the calm of Egypt under stars, ancient and unbroken, holding its people in quiet embrace. This is night over Egypt, a moment beyond labor, beyond noise, beyond time itself. The world rests, and in its rest it endures. The night is deep, the city sleeps. And yet, even as the scribe rests, his work does not. For the words he has set down today will live far beyond him. This is the eternal legacy of the scribe, His body will age. His hands will one day falter. His voice will fall silent. But the ink he lays upon papyrus will endure. Centuries from now, another hand may unroll his scrolls. The black and red symbols will still whisper, still tell of gods and kings, of grain and land, of prayers and dreams. The reed that once trembled, in his grasp will be gone, but the lines it traced will remain sharp, alive with meaning that it is through scribes that Egypt remembers. Through them, pharaohs speak long after their tombs are sealed. Through them, priests chant words older than memory. Through them, farmers' harvests are tallied, families' names preserved, truth recorded and protected. The scribe himself may never be known. Few will speak his name, fewer still carve it in stone. But his words, those he serves, those he preserves, will echo into eternity. He is a quiet bridge between ages, a patient hand binding the present to the future. Without him, Egypt would forget itself. With him, Egypt becomes immortal. Close your eyes. Feel the weight of that legacy, not heavy, but steady, a flame passed from one hand to the next. Hear the quiet scratch of the reed still echoing in the silence of time. Know that though the scribe rests, his work lives on. This is his eternal legacy, to outlast himself, to give memory to a people, to let ink and papyrus speak forever.